Then I'll step back, I said. I'll hate it. But I'll step back. She's your daughter. It's your call. Maya surprised us both. Mom, she said, small and firm at once, can we try his way first? That did it. The mother pressed a fist to her mouth. Years of being the only adult in a room that kept catching fire had burned her thin. The invitation to be carried, even for a minute, almost hurt. She lowered her hand and nodded once. Okay, she whispered. Okay. I felt the room breathe again. The stylist set the scissors down. The receptionist pretended to organize combs. Someone turned the radio down without being asked. 2 things, I said quietly. 1, we tell the man outside that plans changed. 2, we call your landlord from my phone, on speaker, so you know it's real. The mother wiped her cheek with her wrist. He's going to be angry. He's going to be bored, I said. Men like that don't waste heat on families they can't pressure. He'll move on to someone the world cornered. Maya lifted the cape with careful hands and stepped down from the chair, hair spilling over her shoulders like a river that got to keep running. She reached for her mother's fingers and laced them together. Is this allowed? She asked me, embarrassed by her own hope. This? I said. This is what allowed is supposed to look like. She nodded, convincing herself. Okay. We walked toward the door, 3 people trying not to make a ceremony out of leaving. As we passed the product shelf, Lily's last hospital room flashed in my mind, cleaner's lemon, plastic beep, hair in the sink she had laughed at because it looked like a tiny animal sleeping. I touched the doorframe the way some people touch a mezuzah, not for luck, but in memory. On the sidewalk, sun hit us hard. The glass front reflected the 3 of us like a fragile promise. Whatever he says, I told the mother, we answer once. Then we're done. You never owe him a speech. She squared her shoulders. I'm done explaining my child, she said. That sentence right there, I told her, is the beginning of the rest. Maya squeezed her hand. Can I say something if he talks to me? You can say nothing, I said. Silence is allowed, too. Today, we only listened to the voice that cried and the one that answered. The mother almost smiled. And what about your voice? My voice? I said. I'll keep it ready for one word that matters if anyone forgets. I looked at Maya. You know what it is. She nodded. Stop. Exactly, I said. Stop is sometimes the holiest word in a room like this. We stepped into the heat, toward the man waiting in his tidy car with his tidy envelope, toward a conversation that would test whether my promise was muscle or mouth. Inside the salon, the dryers whirred back to life. Outside, the day kept going, indifferent and bright. I felt Lily at my shoulder, memory, not miracle, and for the first time in months, the sound in my chest was not panic. It was resolve. He was waiting where heat bakes the confidence out of most people, arms folded, sunglasses too black for a cloudy day, a man who'd learned to talk like a calculator. He checked his phone, then lifted his chin at us like we were late to a meeting we hadn't asked to attend. You're late, he said to the mother, not looking at Maya, as if children were just packaging. Plans changed, she answered. Her voice thin but didn't crack. Maya's fingers tightened around her hand. The man's smile was the kind that shows teeth without showing warmth. There's a market today, he said. Cut tomorrow and you lose money. That's how this works. Not today, I said. He gave me the once-over he reserves for interference. And you are? The person who's buying them time, I said. Which means you're out of product. He laughed once, a dry cough dressed as a joke. Lady, I'm the only one here doing you a favor. Cash for hair. Takes 15 minutes. Your kid doesn't even feel it. You walk out solvent. Stop, Maya said suddenly, the word a small stone thrown into a big pond. He blinked, annoyed that the pond had ripples. Nobody's talking to you, sweetheart. This is between adults. I stepped half a pace forward and let the silence thicken. She just told you the only sentence that matters, I said. Conversation's over. He shifted his attention back to the mother, lowering his voice like intimidation could be a secret. Think rent cares about feelings? Think the landlord will take a story instead of a deposit? His eyes flicked to Maya's hair the way a hawk measures a field. 500 for that length, 6 if it's healthy. I'm handing you a lifeline. You're throwing a hook, I said. That's not the same thing. He angled himself to block our way, still polite enough to pretend he wasn't. You told me yes, he said to the mother. Don't make me waste my time. She breathed in through her nose, held my card like a talisman, and answered without looking at him. I told you I was desperate, she said. I'm choosing something else. His pleasant tone shredded. People like you stay broke because you don't take deals, he hissed. You let pride cost you. People like you stay lonely because you price everything, I said. We're done. He set his jaw, reached into his jacket, and produced an envelope like a magician who thinks the audience is unsophisticated. Cash. Count it. We cut here and now, no salon markup. Maya pressed herself into her mother's side. Mom. The mother moved her feet, giving herself a clear line past him. My daughter said stop, she told him, steady now. You don't get to speak to her. He tried one last angle. You really think he nodded at me, is going to keep showing up when the lights are off and the fridge is empty? You think you're the first sob story he's collected? I kept my voice even. Walk away, I said. If you don't, the mall's security camera will enjoy watching your exit with a child on film. And my attorney will enjoy the part where you solicited a minor. He weighed the variables, then scoffed in a way that said he'd decided on a story he could tell himself later. You can't save everyone, he muttered, stepping aside. No, I said. But everyone can stop saving you first. He flicked a look at Maya, calculating, annoyed she'd cost him a commission, and then he left, shoes snapping against asphalt, envelope vanishing back into its ecosystem. We stood there for a moment, the air too bright, the relief too new. Maya finally let out the breath she'd been holding since the scissors flashed inside. Is he going to come back? She asked. He's going to get bored, I said. Men like that only chase when someone runs. The mother's shoulders sagged as if a backpack of stones had slipped off without permission. She squeezed my card until the corners bent. You said we'd call the landlord, she whispered, as if the promise might disappear if she spoke normally. We're calling now, I said. We sat on the curb in the thin strip of shade thrown by the salon's awning. I dialed the number she recited from memory, put the phone on speaker, and waited through the ringtones that always sound like they were recorded in 1998. Crescent Oaks Leasing, a voice said, neutral, bored, prepared to be disappointed. This is Ethan, I said. I'd like to make a payment on Unit 3B's account. I read the name on the lease from the mother's ID. A pause long enough to hold suspicion. You're not on the lease. I was signing a receipt at the counter of a strip mall salon I'd stepped into for the first time in my life, more out of boredom than need, when I heard it, a thin, cracking voice that didn't belong in a place that smelled like floral shampoo and warm air. Please, Mom, please, don't cut my hair. The dryer noise went quiet one by one, like light bulbs burning out in sequence. A stylist's comb paused midair. I didn't turn at first. Something inside me wouldn't let me. The sentence was an echo from another year, another room, another child. My fingers stopped moving. The pen carved a silent dark line across the paper. I don't want to, the little girl sobbed, breath hiccuping in her throat. Please, please don't. I turned. A girl stood in a too-big cape that swallowed her shoulders. Her hair fell in a long, dark river down her back, the kind of length that takes years and patience and seasons to grow. Her mother clutched the edge of the cape like a person holding a rope over a cliff, eyes hot, jaw set as if anger could solve hunger. The stylist lifted the scissors. My chest seized. A single sound scraped up my throat and leapt out of me before I could weigh whether I had any right to it. Stop. Everything stopped, hands, scissors, breath. A dozen faces swung toward me. The cashier blinked. The mother's face hardened as if I'd insulted her. The girl's eyes flooded and found mine like a ship finding a lighthouse it didn't trust. "Sir," the stylist said. "This is a private." "Please don't," I said, but I was speaking to the mother now. "Just, give me 1 minute." The mother's lips formed a line like a stitch pulled too tight. "You don't know us," she said. "You don't know why." "That's true," I said. "But I know what it sounds like when a child begs for mercy over her hair." I swallowed, the taste of hospital antiseptic rising uninvited. "And I know what it feels like to regret not listening soon enough." Her eyes flickered, something wounded passing over them. "We don't have time," she said. Her voice shook on the word time. "We have to do this today." "Why?" I asked. She glanced at the glass door. Through it, the sun had gone harsh and white. "Because a man is waiting," she said, almost whispering. "And because we owe rent by tonight." The girl's fingers clutched the cape like a life preserver. "Please, Mom," she said again, softer now, not begging for victory anymore, just begging to be seen. 2 minutes, I said gently. "Give me 2 minutes, and if you still want to, I'll personally pay for the cut." My voice broke, but I kept it steady. "Please." The mother looked at the scissors, at the girl, at me. Something in her face, the exhausted part of a person that only wants someone else to carry the weight for one breath, relented. 2 minutes, she said. And I exhaled for the first time in a year. "My name's Ethan," I said, steadying my voice like a hand on a doorknob that wouldn't turn. "What's yours?" The girl blinked at me from inside the oversized cape. "Maya," she whispered. "That's a strong name," I said. "Maya, I know I'm a stranger. I know this is weird. But I heard you. And sometimes a stranger hears the one sentence that can't be ignored." Her mother's eyes narrowed, not cruel, just tired and protective. "We don't need advice," she said. "We need to get through today." "I won't tell you what to do," I said. "I'll tell you why I froze." I swallowed. "I lost my daughter last year. Lily. 8 years old. The first thing she cried about wasn't needles or hospital food. It was hair. Not because hair is everything, but because it was the one thing she could still call hers." The salon eased into a hush. Blow dryers clicked off. Somewhere, a radio host laughed at a joke we weren't in on. Maya's fingers pinched the edge of the cape, white-knuckled. "Did it hurt?" she asked softly. "When it fell?" "It all hurt," I said. But losing control hurt most. One morning, Lily woke with hair on her pillow like black snow. She stared at me like I was supposed to bargain with the universe. I couldn't. All I could do was ask people to listen when a child says, "Please." That's why I spoke up. Her mother exhaled through her nose, the sound of someone bracing. "We're not cutting it for fun," she said. "A man's waiting outside. He pays cash. Real money. Rent is due tonight. We're already 2 months behind." Maya's chin trembled. "Mom, please," she whispered again, as if the words were coupons that might still be accepted if she said them right. I nodded once. "A broker," I said. "He wants the length for wigs. Kids' hair sells high because it's untouched." The mother flinched at the word sells. "He said 500 if it's healthy," she murmured. "He said I'd be selfish not to do it. That I was choosing pride over a roof." I let the truth sit bare. "Predators talk like that," I said. "They sound like logic when you're scared." "We're not asking for pity," she snapped, then softened instantly, ashamed of the reflex. "Sorry. I'm just tired of people thinking we're bad moms for doing math." "You're not a bad mom," I said. "You're a mom with an impossible equation, rent versus a child's sense of self." I took out my phone, opened my banking app, and turned the screen so she could see what most people assumed was a trick. I can wire your landlord 3 months tonight. Her eyes flicked from the numbers to my face. Why would you? Because I promised a little girl that, if I could ever buy a family time, I would. I looked at Maya. Time means you get to decide when and why. Not a stranger with an envelope. Maya's voice was barely air. You can buy time? Sometimes it's the only thing money really buys, I said. Food buys hours. Rent buys months. Time buys choice. Her mother folded her arms tighter, guarding the last square of dignity. We don't take charity. I'm not offering charity, I said. I'm offering terms. No strings. No debt between us. If, later, when life is steady, Maya chooses to donate some hair because she wants to, I'll drive you myself and make it a celebration, not a sale. How do I know you're not something else? She asked. People with money always want a receipt that costs more than the gift. Then let my receipt be a lease ledger, I said gently. I'll wire the landlord directly. You never see a dollar. You just get a door that opens tomorrow morning. She studied me, scanning for the catch. What do you get? Sleep, I said honestly. Maybe one night without the sound of a child saying please and me being too late. The stylist glanced at the mother, scissors still hovering. We can hold the chair, she offered. No rush. Maya's eyes found mine. What if I want to cut it later? She asked. Like, when I say, not when Rent says. Then we'll do it on your word, I said. We'll tie it with a ribbon you choose. We'll write a note for another kid who forgot what they look like. You'll ring a bell and people will clap, because generosity deserves applause. The mother's guard slipped, just a fraction. A bell? At our foundation's hair day, I said. We fund wigs for pediatric oncology. We pay salons fair, we vet donors, we refuse brokers who hunt desperate families. When a child donates, we treat it like a milestone, not merchandise. Her eyes shone, the fight still there but joined by something else, relief that someone might carry the weight for 12 minutes. And if I say no? If I say we still need the broker? I don't need to be, I said. I need your ACH details or a direct portal link. Another pause, this one adjusting to a new species of conversation. Hold, please. While the hold music tried to sell us a vacation, Maya watched the doorway as if scissors might come to life and march out to finish what they started. I feel weird, she said. Like I won something but my legs are jelly. That's what safety feels like when it finally finds a chair, I said. The manager came back, brisk, skeptical. We don't usually. You'll make an exception today, I said mildly. I'll send proof of transfer while you're on the line. Funds will hit within minutes, my bank is faster than your policies. The mother touched my arm. Please don't talk down to him. He's been okay with us. I nodded, softened my tone. Sir, I'm sorry. It's been a morning. Could you help us help you? He read the routing and account numbers. I typed, double-checked, and hit send. The phone chimed with the transfer confirmation. I texted the screenshot to the number he gave me. Silence. Then, I'm seeing it, he said, voice lifted an octave. Is this 3 months? Yes, I said. And I'll cover late fees. He cleared his throat, his posture on the other end of the line turning human. All right. Then, please let them know they're current. No lockout. And, ma'am? His voice directed itself to the air near us. You've been polite through a tough season. I hope it gets easier. Thank you, the mother said, tears finally allowed. Thank you. We hung up. Nobody moved. A curl of Maya's hair caught on the breeze and lifted, then settled back like a small animal relieved to be loved. Can I? Maya started, then stopped, embarrassed by wanting something after nearly losing everything. Could I get a trim? Just the ends. Split ends feel like broken promises. Trim is celebration, I said. Trim is yours. The The stylist inside saw us through the glass and waved us back as if we were returning from a battle with news of a treaty. We took the same chairs as before, only this time the scissors glinted like tools instead of threats. The cape snapped around Maya's shoulders and she smiled at it, a private pact. I thought capes were for heroes, she said. They're also for girls who keep what's theirs, I answered. The stylist kept her voice low. How much? She asked. Half an inch, Maya said, surprising herself with the pleasure of choosing. Maybe a ribbon at the end? She turned to me. Do you have one? I pulled a small coil from my pocket. Lily used to drag ribbons into every room like she was smuggling joy. I had started carrying one the way some people carry coins from foreign countries. It was a faded blue that looked like it had belonged to a dozen ponytails and one memory. I have one, I said. Maya looked at her mother for permission. The nod came quick this time, the kind of yes that doesn't have to fight its way through a thicket of fear. The stylist trimmed, slow and ceremonial, every snip a sentence, yours. 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 When she tied the ribbon at the end, Maya touched it like a secret handshake. What if later I want to give some away? She asked without looking up. Not because of money. Because I decide. Then we'll make a day of it, I said. At our center, there's a bell. You'd write a note to another kid. We'd take a photo only if you wanted. You'd choose the ribbon color. Everyone would clap because generosity deserves witnesses. The mother's mouth tilted at the corner. And if she never wants to? Then she never wants to, I said. Choice is the point, not the cut. We paid the stylist twice what a trim costs, because the morning had cost more than a trim, and stepped back into the day. The broker's spot in the lot was empty now, as if the sun had erased him. The mother checked her phone. A new email from the leasing office had arrived, paid in full. Welcome to a fresh start. She handed me my card back, then pulled it close again, indecisive. I don't know how to. What do people say when? You already said the only thing that matters, I told her. You listened. Maya slipped her hand into mine with a seriousness that felt like a vow. Thank you for stopping, she said. Thank you for speaking, I answered. She looked at the ribbon, then at me. If we come to your bell day, can I write to a girl who's scared of mirrors? Yes, I said. You can tell her what you learned today. Maya considered, then nodded as if the sentence had tested sturdy in her head. I learned that please is a magic word, she said, but it's even stronger when someone hears it. We parted at the curb. They walked toward the bus stop with the weight of the next problem redistributed, not gone, but bearable. I stood in the heat until their figures blurred into the city's ordinary, and I thought about how many rivers of hair the world had priced without asking who they belonged to, and how a single syllable, stop, can sometimes be enough to buy back a shoreline. The leasing office smelled like printer ink and cheap ramen, the kind of place where overdue balances turn into weather, always there, always heavy. We stood at the counter while the manager clicked through a software that hated him. I forwarded the wire confirmation again, then watched his skeptical face thaw into logistics. It's posted, he said, squinting at the screen as if Mercy had small print. 3 months. Late fees cleared. No lockout. He looked up at the mother, and his voice lost its official tone. You're current. Breathe. She tried, and couldn't, and tried again. Maya leaned into her hip with the natural precision of a child who has learned exactly where a parent's strength lives. I slipped the printed receipt across the counter. Put this on your fridge, I said. Good news deserves magnets. Outside, the daylight felt different, same sun, fewer shadows. We walked to the corner bodega because celebration needs something ordinary. Maya chose a grape juice with the seriousness of a juror, then changed her mind and picked orange because the label had a tiny bell printed next to the barcode. For later, she told me, as if I were the sort of person who kept a shelf for hope. At the bus stop, the mother stared at the receipt like it might evaporate. I don't have words, she said. People like us don't get mornings like this. We get extensions. We get reminders. We don't get receipts that say paid unless something else breaks. Nothing breaks today, I said. Not if I can help it. And tomorrow, well, tomorrow will let tomorrow be a person with its own keys. Are you always like this? She asked, half teasing, half guarded. Fixing things that didn't ask to be fixed. No, I said. I'm only like this since the hospital taught me the worst sound in the world. I didn't say Lily's name, I didn't have to. Some names hover over every sentence like a watermark. Their bus hissed to a stop. Before they boarded, I put a small envelope in the mother's hand, gift cards for groceries and the pharmacy. These come with boundaries, I said. No favors owed. No phone calls at midnight unless you want to share a good joke. My foundation's number is inside if you ever want to come to a hair day, only if she asks. Maya turned the envelope over like a treasure map. Is the bell loud? She asked. Small, I said, but it sounds like victory. The bus swallowed them and rolled away, leaving me in the kind of silence you only get after a door that was supposed to slam stays open. I walked back to the salon to thank the stylist for pausing a day's work to hold the edges of a moment. She shrugged it off the way good people do. We see things, she said. Most days I wish I didn't. She pocketed the extra cash I pressed across the counter and said she'd pass it to the assistant who had watched Maya like a sister. We trade dignity in 1,000 tiny economies. That evening, back at my office, I wrote notes. We needed new language on our website, no brokers. No minors. Choice before change. We needed a script for salons who sense trouble, ask why. Offer time. Call us if a child is involved and money is the reason. We needed a list of partner shops that would certify donor consent and a blacklist of those who didn't care who cried as long as hair weighed heavy in the bag. I sent 3 emails to people who answer my messages even after 8 p.m., a pediatric oncologist who explains fear like a translator, a social worker who has a talent for turning humiliation into action plans, and a barber who once told me the hardest part of a cut is knowing what someone's leaving behind. I asked them to meet next week. I titled the calendar event Stop Listen Bell so I wouldn't forget what the work is when the spreadsheets tried to convince me it was rows and columns. Around 10, my phone buzzed. A picture. Maya, on her couch, hair freshly trimmed and tied with the faded blue ribbon I carry like a pocket prayer. Her mother's text wrote underneath, "We stuck the receipt on the fridge with a magnet shaped like a cat. She's asleep with the ribbon on. Thank you for buying us a door." I typed 3 different replies and erased them all, then sent the only one that felt right, "Sleep well. Tomorrow is yours." Sleep didn't come for me right away. It never does. I made tea that smelled like grass and old books and stood at the window watching the city do its late shift. Somewhere a siren announced catastrophe to a street that had already learned to reply with indifference. Somewhere a landlord counted and somewhere a broker recalculated and somewhere a stylist turned off a light and thought about a single word, stop, and how it can be a bridge of set in time. Close to midnight, I pulled out the box from my desk, the one I visit when resolve needs evidence. Inside were 6 notes from parents whose children wore our wigs through hard seasons. She smiled at herself for the first time in months. He asked if he looked like himself again and then said never mind because he felt like himself. We rang our own bell today, she finished treatment. I added a blank card and wrote, "Maya, today you kept what was yours, and tomorrow you'll share when you decide." Ready is a holy word. I didn't know when I'd give it to her. Some letters are meant to arrive after the heart catches up. The next morning, our intake line was busier than usual. Word had leaked, a salon manager posted something, a neighbor repeated it, a cousin texted a cousin, and our receptionist said 3 different mothers asked the same question in 3 different ways, "Is there another way?" We said yes. Not because we are heroes. Because a child cried in a salon and the room, for once, listened. By noon, we'd scheduled our next hair day. I ordered 24 small bells from a school supply store because sometimes you have to manufacture the sound of a win until people believe they're allowed to make it. I asked our designer to print cards with a sentence at the top, "You are not your mirror." I asked our lawyer to draft language for a letter to malls about predatory buyers. The law likes nouns, we would give it names. At dusk, I walked past the strip mall again. The salon's neon sign buzzed like a tired bee. Through the glass, I saw a mother lifting a toddler into a booster seat, a teen arguing playfully about bangs, a stylist laughing with her whole face. The ordinary had come back, and that, more than any headline, felt like proof. I touched the doorframe as I passed, the way I had earlier, an instinct that was part ritual and part gratitude. The frame was cool, the metal remembered hands. I thought about Lily's last haircut and how she told me she felt faster without the weight. I thought about Maya's ribbon and how the trim sounded like sentences that return what the world tries to take. I thought about receipts on fridges and bells that fit in a pocket. When I reached the corner, a kid on a scooter zipped by, hair wild, laughing danger into something harmless. I wanted to tell him to slow down and didn't, because choice is the point. Instead, I said a quiet thank you to the kind of day that doesn't demand a speech, rent paid, scissors used gently, a broker board, a door open. Not every story needs a miracle. Some just need a receipt, a ribbon, and the right person to say one word at the right time. The morning after, my office felt heavier, not because of work but because of echoes. Every time I set a folder down, I heard Maya's whisper, "Please, Mom, don't cut my hair." Every time my phone rang, I thought of the man in the parking lot and the way his voice dripped with certainty that desperation equals compliance. I brewed coffee that went cold before I touched it. Paperwork towered on my desk, numbers waiting to be solved, but none of it felt as urgent as the memory of a child clutching the cape around her shoulders like armor. So I did what I always do when ghosts press too close. I opened the box of letters. Our foundation keeps every note, every crayon drawing, every folded sheet written in shaky pencil. We call them receipts of the heart. They remind us why this work isn't about transactions but about survival with dignity. One letter had come in last week, written in purple marker on lined paper. My brother says I look ugly without hair. I told him I'm still me. But I don't believe it. Can you help me believe it? Rena, age 11. Another was from a mother in Ohio. I cut my daughter's hair myself when we couldn't pay gas. She cried every night. The money bought heat for 1 month. The shame lasted longer. If I had known someone like you existed, I would have begged for your number instead of the scissors. I closed my eyes. For every Maya saved in time, 10 more carried the silence of what they lost. By noon, the phone rang again. Our receptionist patched the call through, whispering that it sounded urgent. A man's voice came first, raspy, worn. "My wife said you, help." I asked his name. "Carlos," he said. "My little girl, Amelia, she's 7. Someone left a card on her windshield last night. Said they'd pay cash for her hair. Said we wouldn't be selfish if we agreed. I told my wife no, but she's scared. Rent's overdue. We're choosing between hair and heat." The words stabbed because I knew the script. Different family, same trap. Brokers were circling like vultures because one story had gone viral, wealthy stranger saves girl's hair. To predators, hope is just another market. "Bring Amelia to our next event," I said. "Not to sell. To celebrate. We'll cover your rent. But more than that, we'll give her back her choice." He went silent for a long moment. "You'd do that? For us?" "Not for you," I said softly. "For her. Because children should never cry in capes unless they're pretending to be superheroes." When the call ended, I leaned back and let the ceiling hold the weight. This was bigger now. One act in a strip mall salon had cracked open a whole system of hidden exploitation. Brokers who treated children's bodies like commodities were thriving on silence. And I had promised myself that silence was the one currency I'd never spend again. That evening, an envelope arrived with no return address. Inside was a small wooden box, hand-carved and smooth at the edges. When I opened it, a braid lay coiled inside, glossy, dark, tied with a faded pink ribbon. A note sat beneath it. For a child who forgot what they look like. Tell them I know the feeling. A friend. I touched the braid with both reverence and grief. Somewhere out there was another Maya, another child who had made a choice instead of having it ripped away. Somewhere, generosity had survived hunger. I wrote a card to keep with it. This braid was given freely. May it remind you that you are more than what the mirror shows. The work was no longer about a single girl in a salon. It was about building an army of receipts, notes, braids, ribbons, whispers turned into bells. Proof that choice could echo louder than desperation if enough people listened in time. That night, I pinned a new phrase above my desk in red ink. Because one cry had saved a braid. But thousands more were waiting for someone, anyone, to freeze, turn, and say the word that changes everything. The weeks that followed the salon felt like walking inside a storm that only I could hear. My inbox filled with subject lines that looked like confessions. Help us before we break. Do you really mean it? My daughter's hair for rent. The phone rang at odd hours, voices raw, carrying stories of children bartered by landlords, brokers, or fear itself. It would have been easier to ignore, to chalk it up to the internet's hunger for miracles and tragedies packaged into headlines. But every time I thought of turning away, I heard Maya's voice again. Please, Mom, don't cut my hair. That sound had rewired me. I couldn't go back. So we built something bigger. We called it the Bell Project. Not a foundation, not a charity, but a movement built on a single ritual, a child's choice, honored by a bell that rang for everyone to hear. We rented a community center gymnasium that smelled like varnished floors and echoes. Volunteers strung paper bells from the ceiling, small ones cut from construction paper, big ones traced from silver foil. Each table had scissors laid out, not as weapons but as tools of celebration. When families arrived, they looked wary. Children clutched their hair as if any hand might snatch it. Parents glanced at the registration desk like it was a courtroom. We greeted them with juice boxes, crayons, and one sentence printed on banners. Maya was the first to arrive, ribbons still tied at the ends of her dark hair. She carried the small braid she'd chosen to part with weeks earlier, locked in a box like treasure. Her mother held her shoulders with pride instead of fear this time. Are you ready? I asked her quietly. She nodded, eyes steady. It's mine to give now. When she placed the braid into the velvet-lined tray, the room hushed. She rang the bell, a small silver one no bigger than her hand, and the sound echoed in that gym like victory bottled and uncorked. Parents clapped. Kids clapped harder. Maya smiled, not tentative this time, but with her whole face. Then she sat at the writing table and scrawled a note in purple crayon. Dear friend. You are still you. Your hair doesn't tell your story, you do. Here's a peace of mind so you don't feel alone. Maya. I had to look away to hide the tears. The note, folded beside the braid, became a promise waiting for the right chill. Word spread fast. Photos of children ringing bells, sometimes laughing, sometimes crying, always choosing, traveled further than we expected. Local news covered it. Then national. Then overseas. For every letter of thanks, we received 3 more pleas for help. Families caught in impossible trades. Children crying in salons. Brokers lurking in parking lots, whispering the language of debt. We trained salons across the state, then across the country. Ask why. Offer time. Call us if money is the reason. We printed guides in 5 languages. We built a hotline. We hired counselors who understood that dignity is medicine. The brokers noticed. One even called my office, voice oily with contempt. You can't blacklist us all, he sneered. Markets don't care about your bells. Markets don't, I said. But mothers do. Fathers do. Children do. And they're louder. I hung up and added his name to a growing list sent to every salon partner we had. His calls stopped. One morning, we received a package addressed simply. To the bellman. Inside was a ribbon, red and frayed, tied around a single lock of blonde hair. The note read, "She didn't survive. But she wanted to give this before she left. Please make sure it helps someone smile once. Her mom." I placed that lock in the archive we were building, not for wigs, but for memory. A hall of stories too sacred to sell. Another day, a boy named Aaron sent us a drawing of two stick figures holding hands. One had no hair, the other had long scribbles of brown. Between them, he'd drawn a bell. Underneath, he wrote, "Now she doesn't cry at night." I taped it to the office door. Everyone who walked in touched it like a blessing. Months later, Maya came back. Taller somehow, more certain. Her ribbon had faded, but her smile hadn't. "I want to help ring the bell for others," she said. We let her. Every time a child placed their braid in the tray, Maya stood by the bell. She didn't just ring it. She whispered to them, "It's yours. You chose. That's power." Children believed her. Parents cried behind their hands. And I, standing at the edge of the gym, realized we hadn't just saved one girl's hair, we had saved her voice. That night, alone in my office, I opened Lily's box, the one I kept hidden in the bottom drawer. Her last ribbon, pale yellow. A photo of her grinning with missing teeth. The hospital bracelet I could never throw away. I whispered to her what had happened, about Maya, about the bell, about the letters arriving like prayers. I told her that her voice had multiplied through echoes, that her cry had birthed a movement. And for the first time since I buried her, I felt something close to peace. Not because grief had lessened, but because it had been given a job. Money had started this, brokers turning children's bodies into rent. But money wasn't what kept the movement alive. Bells did. Ribbons did. Letters with no return address did. What money couldn't buy was the sight of Maya teaching another child how to write a note. What money couldn't buy was the sound of 30 bells ringing in unison at our largest event, a chorus of survival. What money couldn't buy was watching parents exhale for the first time in months when they realized no one would force their child to the chair. We'd bought time, yes. But what grew from that time was louder than markets, dignity, choice, and the courage to say stop. And every time the bell rang, I heard it again, the cry in the salon that had split the world open. Only now, it didn't echo in pain. It rang in power. The gymnasium smelled of paper bells, lemonade, and nervous hope. It was our biggest event yet, more than 50 families, some who had driven 6 hours because they'd heard about the bell that protects hair. I stood near the entrance, greeting them, and each time a child's eyes darted to the scissors on the table, I thought of Maya and the first day I'd heard her beg. She arrived halfway through the morning, walking taller than before, her ribbon frayed but still tied proudly. Her mother followed behind, no longer hunched by shame or weighed down by impossible math. Maya spotted me, ran across the floor, and held up a folded note. "I want to read this today," she said, cheeks flushed with courage. "What is it?" I asked. She pressed it into my hand. A speech, she'd scrawled at the top in purple crayon, letters uneven but determined. When her turn came, she stood on the little platform beside the silver bell. Dozens of parents leaned forward, children clutched their braids or ribbons, the air hushed. She unfolded the paper and read, voice quivering but clear. "Hi. My name is Maya. Once, I cried because someone said my hair was worth money. But it was worth more to me. I begged my mom not to cut it, and a man told her to stop. That day I learned my voice mattered." She looked up, eyes sweeping the room, meeting other children's stares. "Your hair is not rent. Your hair is not food. Your hair is not someone else's envelope. It is yours. You can share it when you are ready, not when the world is angry at you. Today, if you cut, it is because you want to. If you don't, that is power too." The room fell silent, then erupted into applause. Parents clapped through tears, children cheered, and the bell rang so loud it seemed to echo beyond the gym's walls. In that moment, Maya wasn't just a child. She was a mirror the whole world needed, showing us what happens when the smallest voices are finally heard. After the event, when the crowd thinned and children chased balloons across the gym floor, I sat on the edge of the stage. Maya came to sit beside me, swinging her legs. "You froze that day," she said softly. "In the salon." "Why?" I stared at the floorboards, heart heavy. "Because it wasn't just your voice I heard. It was my daughter's. Her name was Lily. She was 8, just like you. The doctors took her hair before the sickness did. She cried and said it wasn't fair, and I didn't know how to make it better. I couldn't save her, Maya. So when I heard you beg, it was like God gave me one more chance." She was quiet for a long time. Then she slipped her small hand into mine. "You did save her," she said. "Not her body, but her voice. Because now every time the bell rings, it's like she's here too." I bit down on the ache in my throat. Out of the mouths of children come the truths adults spend decades trying to say. That week, videos of Maya's speech flooded the internet. Millions watched her stand at a microphone in a gym decorated with paper bells and tell the world, "Your hair is not rent." News anchors replayed it. Parents shared it. Children copied it. Donations surged, but more important, calls surged. Not just from families in need, but from barbers, stylists, and even landlords. A salon in Dallas pledged never to cut a child's hair without their consent. A landlord in Chicago forgave a month's rent for a family after hearing Maya's story. A legislator in California called our office and asked if we'd help draft a bill against child hair exploitation. Maya had become a symbol, not because she sought it, but because truth spoken by a child cuts sharper than policy. At night, alone in my office, I pulled out Lily's box again, ribbon, photo, bracelet. But this time I brought Maya's speech too, written in purple crayon. I placed them side by side. For years, I had carried guilt like an anchor, that I hadn't been able to save Lily from the disease that stripped her hair and her life. I had money, but money can't bribe death. I had influence, but influence can't rewrite biology. But now, sitting in the quiet, I realized something had shifted. Maya's plea had resurrected Lily's voice in a way I'd never expected. The bell didn't just ring for the children who came after, it rang for the child I'd lost. I whispered to the box, "We did it, Lily. You're still teaching me. You're still speaking." And for the first time, the grief didn't crush. It expanded, stretched into something wider, something that could hold others too. By spring, the Bell Project had chapters in 12 cities. Each event began the same, a child stepping forward, scissors glinting harmlessly, a braid placed gently into a tray, and a bell rung to declare the act was theirs alone. At one event in Philadelphia, 20 bells rang in a row, each note blending into the next until it sounded like a choir of defiance. Parents hugged. Children laughed. And for the first time, brokers who had once lurked in parking lots were nowhere to be seen. Word had gotten out, this community listens, and it says STO. Months later, Maya returned again. She carried a larger braid this time, tied with a fresh ribbon. She placed it in the tray with steady hands. "This one," she said, "is for Lily." I couldn't speak. The bell rang, and I felt the sound wrap itself around my chest like arms. On the note, she'd written, "Dear friend, you are not alone. I had someone listen to me. Now I am listening to you." That evening, as the sun bled orange through the gym windows, I stood before the crowd. "When a child cries and begs to be heard, the world has two choices," I said. "To turn away, or to freeze and listen." That day in the salon, I listened. And because of one word, stop, we are all here now. Not because of money. Not because of power. But because a child reminded us what matters. The crowd rose to their feet, applause rolling like thunder. Bells rang in every hand. Maya stood in the center, ribbon trailing from her braid, face lit by the sound of victory. And I realized, the little girl who once begged not to lose her hair had given the world back its ears. The movement was no longer mine. It was hers. It was Lily's. It was every child's. And for the first time, I believed, maybe the world could learn to listen. The last event of the year was held in a hall too small for the crowd it drew. Families spilled into the aisles, children sat cross-legged on the floor, and bells, silver, wooden, paper, even toy ones painted gold, hung from every beam. The air vibrated with something more than anticipation. It felt like faith, the quiet belief that this time, no child would be forced into silence. Maya walked to the front, her braid tied with a new ribbon, blue as the sky she seemed to carry inside her now. She didn't need a speech. She didn't need notes. She simply lifted the bell and let it ring. The sound wasn't loud in itself, but it carried, through the hall, through the silence of the crowd, through the memory of every parent who had once wondered if dignity could be bought. The crowd rose to their feet. Children clapped, parents cried, and for a moment the whole room seemed to breathe as one. I stood in the corner, watching her, and knew what I had always been too afraid to admit: this movement no longer belonged to me. It belonged to the children. It belonged to voices like hers. That night, when the hall emptied and the bells still swayed from the rafters, I stayed behind. I opened Lily's box one last time. Inside, her yellow ribbon lay curled, fragile but unbroken. I set it beside Maya's blue one, side by side, two voices separated by years but united in sound. I whispered, "You're still here, Lily. Every time a bell rings, it's you." And for the first time, the weight of loss shifted. Not gone, it never would be, but transformed into something lighter, something that could be carried forward without breaking me. The Bell Project has grown into more than an event. It's become a promise written in every note, every braid, every child's decision honored. It tells the world that silence is not consent, that dignity is not negotiable, and that even the smallest voice can teach us how to listen. I still freeze sometimes when I hear a child cry. But now, instead of shame, the sound brings action. I hear Maya. I hear Lily. I hear every child who begged not to be turned into a transaction. And I remember, stop is still the holiest word in the room. To everyone watching this story, take this with you: listen when the small voices speak. Protect the choices that seem too little to matter, because to a child, they are everything. And when the world tries to price what cannot be priced, let the bells remind you, we are worth more than markets. Bell, if this story touched you, let your voice ring with ours. Thumbs up, like this video so others hear it. Speech balloon, and in the comments, write one word: listen, so the world never forgets what a little girl taught us. Because long after ribbons fade and braids are gone, what remains is the echo. A bell, a plea, and a world that finally chose to hear.